Gents, I just wanted, now that the window is officially shut, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and just talk about which Premier League clubs have done the best business. Obviously, for the January period overall, there's only one team that's really dominated, and that's Chelsea. With the massive amounts of cash they spent. Again, it's over £500 million in the last couple of transfer windows they would have spent if this Enzo Fernandez deal does get over the line as we expect. So, Nick, what were the best moves of the January window for you, or the most important ones, or the ones where you were like, you know what, I really love that for that club or that player?
Ooh, good question. I like João Felix despite the red card. I really do. Yeah. I think he's something that they are missing at Chelsea. I guess I want to say that I like what Leeds and Forest did, but Forest has bought enough players for about 6 different teams. And I don't want to go small sample size here, but that Danilo, the 21-year-old defensive mid, looks like he might be just what they need to settle things down. So, I don't know what really is standing out to me, other than, by the way, let's point this out, I love that Leicester City bought someone who played his last soccer for Syracuse University.
Yeah, and then loaned him out, right? But he's one for the future for sure. So, a lot of crazy deals, a lot of good deals, a lot of eye-catching ones over the month, Andy. Who do you think did the best business? We mentioned Arsenal quite a bit. They've probably done the most sensible and the kind of ones that really improved their squad where they needed to do it. Are they the big winners of January for you?
Yep. Yeah, they made the adult decisions this transfer window, and Arsenal have almost never done that. And I don't say that as an insult. For years they needed a six. The same thing that we've talked about with Manchester United, and they signed a new striker on deadline day every year. They signed a new winger for 80 million on deadline day, and they just ignored what they needed because it wasn't the flashy thing, it wasn't the fun thing, it wasn't gonna, whatever. The social media reaction wasn't going to be the same for a boring defensive midfielder as bringing Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang back on a new contract. And they always made the wrong decision, and it feels like something has just completely changed with how decisions are made at Arsenal. They're running it very, very smartly. You go out and get Jorginho just before the deadline. You bring in Leandro Trossard, a couple of perfect, very versatile depth pieces for a squad that's already pretty solid and complete, doesn't need fixing or changing, just needed a little bit of something added to it. And it feels like they went and did it. And when you look at the other side for Man City in the title race, you just wonder, the more I talk about it, and as I talk, I think I'm buying into Arsenal being the favorites now. And that wasn't the case before.
Absolutely. And some intriguing news from Nottingham Forest. Keylor Navas apparently is joining, according to Fabrizio Romano. So that is another decent little move from Forest as well, Nick. Like you said, to your point, they've done good business. Late in the window, we've seen, likes of Fulham, Southampton, Bournemouth, all kind of making moves throughout January, and then a flurry of deals to kind of save themselves or push themselves into a better position in the league, like Leeds have done as well. So Nick, is there any other teams or any deal that you really liked? Because you said João Felix was your favorite one. I think for me, I think long term, I just cannot see past Mudryk actually at Chelsea as well. I really have liked what I've seen from him in his opening few games, and I just think it's not going to be great news for Christian Pulisic, I don't think, with our US hats on, but he is electric and is going to be extremely exciting. We all questioned them spending that amount of money on him, but I really like that signing. But any others for you that have really stood out this month?
The Cunha from Wolves as a loan move to see if they like what they have there. I think Wolves probably, along with Bournemouth, are among the teams that we absolutely needed to see an influx of talent. I don't think with the Cherries that they did quite as much as you would have liked them to, but they at least gave themselves a chance with attackers. And assuming again, Andy mentioned it, and I want to phrase it the exact same way. Assuming the Sabitzer move happens the way that they acted, I mean, that tackle from Andy Carroll was 3-4 days ago, and they lined up a world-class, almost for maybe a little bit tougher even replacement.
Yep.
Absolutely. And really good question here from Michael Aladipo, just to kind of change gears, boys. And it's, Liverpool will be fighting for relegation by the end of March. I mean, that seems a little bit harsh, but what he's suggesting there is, aside from signing Cody Gakpo, obviously pretty quiet month for Liverpool, when maybe they needed that midfielder, maybe they needed that big money signing. But again, with the ownership situation, Andy, kind of being a bit up in the air, they're really not going to spend that huge amounts of money on a Jude Bellingham that they've been linked with until the situation's figured out. So I guess what I'm going to talk with and changing gears is, are Liverpool one of the teams that you look at and say, you needed to do more in January to get themselves in the top 4 picture? Or there's a lot of teams out there, we mentioned Everton as well. You probably needed to do more to get yourself further up the table, and you didn't do the business that was needed to be done.
Yeah, on Liverpool, I think it's really difficult because it's a massive squad already. It's just a really injured squad, so they don't have a lot of players available, and so financially, you're the club being for sale or able to be bought, however you want to phrase it right now, is one thing. But how much money they are allowed to put into the squad and spend into wages and everything, I think probably came into play at a certain level, because some of the contracts for some of the players they have are just absolutely massive. They are these mega stars in the world, and they command these deals that are just, astronomical compared to everybody else, even at the in the upper echelons of the game. And so I think that was probably a bit of an issue as well. And so once they get people back, once Luis Diaz is back, once Diogo Jota is back, I'm just looking down the list here, that there's so many important players that have missed 6, 8, 10, 12 games for them this season, that they're going to come back at some point. And then you bring in a bunch of new signings, and then somebody's not playing, and then somebody's value decreases and goes from being, we could sell this player for 60 million, now we can only get 20 million. And so you just have to, the value of their assets right now, they have so much value that's out injured and unavailable to play. And you can't just keep buying and spending and adding on top of that and ignore what has already been spent and bought, invested into it, because that value then takes a massive hit. So it's an unenviable place that Liverpool are in right now.
Absolutely. And we talked there about, obviously, they are a team that should have done more. But Arsenal, Jordan's got a great question here. Jordan Fingal says, how do you guys feel about Arsenal's window after missing out on Mudryk, Felix, and Caicedo? We said it at the top, right? I think we feel really good about it, Nick. And we feel that with Trossard and Jorginho, the experience and ready-made Premier League, international, I'd say Jorginho's case, world-class players, and Trossard's getting to that level. They've had a great window, and they've added strength, and they've added sensibly. So you mentioned the names there. They've been linked with them throughout the window, but been picked by Chelsea, or may not, may go back in for Caicedo, right, in the summer. But they're still looking very, very good, right? So would you echo those feelings on Arsenal that Andy said before?
Yeah, I mean, what do they have in common is the question. With Mudryk and Felix, you're talking about attacking players. I think Arsenal has plenty of that. We haven't seen Emile Smith-Rowe for quite a long time as well. And think about the season he had last year. When Andy was talking about how they were the adults in the room, I thought of this. You would have normally thought first place, seeing the potential for a Premier League title, and they go all out to bring in Yuri Tielemans, who maybe isn't a perfect fit, right? Who isn't the guy that they need. So instead they say, you know what? Some of our fans are going to be upset about this. We're kind of doing the David Luiz thing here. And we're going to take Jorginho, and we'll kick the can down the road, so to speak.
Well, but also the fact that they ended up with Trossard after Mudryk goes to Chelsea, and they end up with Jorginho after Caicedo bids are rejected. Like, you talked about Manchester United having a solid backup plan and just ready to execute it, boom, boom, go. It felt like Arsenal had that as well. It felt like the organization at a couple of these clubs that have been down bad for a long time, it feels like something massive within the way those clubs are being operated and the people in charge has really changed. And I think you can make a case for, at least with the Trossard signing, probably a more impactful or just ready to contribute, I guess, player this season. And if you view it through that lens of we would like to win the Premier League title, and this player gives us the best opportunity. Maybe they came out on the better end of that either or choice. Caicedo, it feels like if Arsenal are the Premier League champions, they'll come back for him in the summer and he will go there. And so they're going to get him either way. And then Jorginho moves on and everybody's happy. It feels like they have played every single card in their hand at the exact right moment and in the right way. And they've gotten all this correct.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.